So today, we're not talking about theories or allegations. We are literally just following the paper trail. Everything you're about to see, it comes straight from the official record.
We're going to follow the evidence here through 6 distinct stages. We'll start by identifying a pattern that's just undeniable. Then we'll trace it through the official timeline. We'll put the internal evidence right up against the official denials, show how procedure was weaponized, and uncover the devastating human cost. And that's all going to lead us to a single, really unavoidable question that this whole record forces us to ask.
All right, let's get right to it. The core of this whole thing, it's a fundamental paradox. How can an institution use its own records to take action against someone and then turn around and block access to those exact same records when it's time to be held accountable?
And that right there is the central contradiction. And look, the documents, they show this isn't just some one-off mistake. What we see is a pattern, and it just repeats itself. Crucial decisions are made based on specific data, but the second that data is requested for review, the door just gets slammed shut.
Okay, just a really critical point before we dive any deeper. Everything we're presenting here is completely anchored in verifiable evidence. There's no speculation here, no drama. We are just, plain and simple, following the paper trail.
So, you might be asking, how did this pattern of obstruction actually take shape? To understand that, we have to look at the official timeline. The sequence of events is absolutely critical here, because it shows how all these individual actions just built on each other, piece by piece, until they formed this impenetrable wall.
It all starts back on April 1st, 2022. Joseph Janes is assaulted, but somehow, he's the one who gets arrested. Fast forward to November, he requests a paramedic. Armed police are sent instead. The very next day, a gas leak is suddenly reported in his all-electric building. Then, in the final days right before a critical court hearing, the police deny access to key Ring doorbell footage, and then on the very day of the hearing, the only defense witness is detained by police right outside the courthouse. She never even gets to take the stand.
Now, you really have to pay attention to the language here from PC Kim Baker of Surrey Police. I mean, she openly admits that relevant Ring doorbell footage exists. She even offers a description of it, but then, in the very same breath, she denies direct access to the footage itself, basically kicking the can down the road into a legal process, just days before it's needed in court.
So the outcome here is just undeniable. The defendant had to walk into that hearing completely disarmed, denied the very evidence that the police themselves had already confirmed was relevant. This wasn't some accident. It was the direct result of the obstruction we just walked through.
All right, this brings us right to the core of the investigation, where we're going to put the internal records right up against the official outcomes. And this is where the contradictions just become impossible to ignore.
Okay, let's just look at the facts here, side by side. First up, the witness. The internal record shows she was physically present at court, all ready to testify. The official outcome, detained by police and effectively silenced. Second, vulnerability. The internal record shows the housing association noted his PTSD and high-risk status. The official outcome, no legally required adjustments were made. And third, the CCTV. An internal police email confirms relevant footage exists. The official outcome, access denied.
I mean, this just perfectly illustrates the disconnect. Internally, the housing association had it all documented. Jane's PTSD. They knew what the law, the Equality Act 2010, required them to do, to make reasonable adjustments for disability. And yet, the official outcome was a complete failure to do any of it. The knowledge was there, in black and white, but the legal duty was just ignored.
And this might be the most brazen action in the entire record. Look, the witness didn't just fail to show up. She was there. The record shows Surrey police actively stepped in, using the Mental Health Act to detain her. And by doing that, they single-handedly neutralized the entire defense right before the hearing started.
So how do all these individual actions add up to a systematic blockade? Well, the record shows us exactly how. Official procedure itself was basically weaponized, used not for justice, but as a shield.
Yeah, the record reveals this clear 4-step playbook. Step 1, you deny the evidence. Step 2, you neutralize the witnesses. Step 3, you block data requests. And Step 4, you dodge all the blame by claiming to be just a data processor. It's this technical move that's designed to make legal responsibility just impossible to pin down.
Now, to really get that last point, we need to quickly talk about what a data controller is. Put simply, it's the organization that decides why and how personal data gets used. They're the ones holding the legal bag, so to speak. They're responsible.
And right there, that creates a logical impossibility. I mean, you've got the police, the housing association, the council. They're all sharing and acting on this person's data, and yet they all claim they're just processors. So who's the data controller? Who's actually responsible? The law is crystal clear on this. That responsibility can't just evaporate somewhere between agencies.
You know, this wasn't just some battle over paperwork and procedures. This systemic obstruction had absolutely devastating and frankly entirely foreseeable consequences for a real person. Let's take a look at the documented impact.
The direct results of these actions, all documented in the record, they include homelessness and the loss of all possessions, severe psychological harm, and making a PTSD diagnosis worse, a flat-out denial of the right to a fair trial, and a whole cascade of systemic failures leading to physical and psychological harm.
This quote from Joseph Jane's own impact statement, it just cuts through all the bureaucracy. I was a soldier 5 years ago. Now I'm homeless. I have become a casualty of a system that was meant to protect me. Think about that. A veteran, a casualty not of some foreign war, but of the very system that was supposed to protect him right here at home.
So after looking at the timeline, the evidence, the methods, and the real-world consequences, we land at the final unavoidable question that this whole documentary record just forces us to confront.
Okay, so when you look at the repetition, the consistency, the coordination across different agencies, the official record makes one thing perfectly clear. This was not some simple administrative error.
And you can't just dismiss this as incompetence either. The actions we've seen, like the timing of the witness's detention or the very specific language used to deny evidence, they seem way too precise, way too effective in getting the job done.
So the only conclusion you can really draw from a straight reading of the evidence is this. This was a deliberate pattern of systemic obstruction, and it was designed with one functional outcome in mind, to prevent accountability.
And so we end right back where we started. This whole documentary record leaves us with one single unavoidable question. If institutions can rely on data to act against a person, but deny that same data when asked to account for it, what mechanism of accountability still exists?